Okay, hi. Welcome to CSM Week 8, Question 3. So for this question, we're going to be going over the in order function, which is a generator function. So what does that mean? That means that the function in order will just return an iterator. So what the problem statement gives us is a tree T, and we take in this tree and we have to yield an iterator that follows a sequence as follows. So for each node, the labels of the left branch should come first. Then we should get to the current node, and then we should go down to the right nodes. So as an example, I've drawn out what this would look like on one of the doc tests that they've given us. So here we have a tree that we call T, and we set it equal to this right here. So I drew it out on the right side here, and we have a tree with a label 0, followed by all of its branches. So we see that in order returns the list drawn out right here, 1, 0, 3, 2, 4. So let's first understand why this is so we can have a better conceptual understanding of the problem. So if we start by looking at this tree, we know that we need to visit the left branches first. So we start at the 0, we're going to go down to this left branch, and we hit 1. And since 1 is a leaf node, we will just yield 1. Then we will make our way back up to the current branch, and we will yield whatever our current node is. And then finally, our next step is to move down to the right branch. And this will continue so on and so forth. So now that we're at this 2, we need to go to the left. We hit 3, we yield that, we go back up, we yield 2, and then we go down to the right, and we will yield 4. So this is the function that we want to implement. Okay, so like we've seen before with tree problems, typically when we're dealing with a tree, we want to use recursion because trees lend themselves to recursion very easily. So as we've also seen before, when we're dealing with the tree, we typically use our base case once we hit a leaf node. And in this case, let's think about what we do every time we hit a leaf node. So when we hit a leaf node, that's when we know that we have no more branches to go down. So in that case, we can just yield whatever label we are at. So we can say if is leaf t, meaning if we are at a leaf node, we can just yield our current label. So we can yield label of t. Okay, else, now we need to take care of our recursive calls, right? So now we know what happens when we're at the base case. We've already dealt with that. And now we're dealing with the middle part of the tree, so to speak. So this is the part where we now actually need to call our function on branches. So let's look back at the problem statement to see how we can approach this. So at each node, we first want to visit the labels of the left. So that means that we will want to call in order on the entire left subtree first. And once the entire left subtree has finished running, then we can come back to our current node. So again, let's think about it in terms of this example that I've drawn out. Imagine that we're starting right here from this 0. So when we're here, we want to go to the left child first. So in order to do this, we're going to recursively call the function on the left branch of this tree. And once we are done with that, we can return back to 0. So our first step is to yield from in order. Here's our recursive call. Branches of t. And we want to get the left branch, so that will be at index 0. Okay, so let's go through this statement again, and I'll move this just to make room. Okay. So the reason we're using a yield from statement here is because in order as a recursive call will give us an iterable sequence, right? So when we're given a sequence, which is just an iterator in this case, we want to yield from it. That's why we use our yield from keyword, because we're not just yielding one value, we're yielding a sequence of values. So now we can assume that we've taken care of the left case. So let's look back to the problem to see what we do next. So once we finish the labels of the left branch, we then proceed to the parent label, which is just whatever label we are currently at, and we want to yield that. So in order to do that, we can just yield our current label, which is label at t. Right, so again, let's think about this in terms of our example. We start at this 0, we go down to the left subtree, and once we're done with that, which is what this line took care of, the left subtree, then we're at our current label, and now we are ready to yield that. So we can yield label of t. So again, we've taken care of the left case, we've taken care of the current node, and lastly, what do we need to do? We need to take care of the right case. So this will be very similar to the first recursive call we made. We will again yield from, because we're about to output a sequence of values. We will yield from in order. And now we want to do it on the right branch. So we'll call branches of t. And this time we will index it at 1, because this will give us the right branch. So that is it for week 8, question 3 in order.